Good evening, Lawrenauts. I'm Jim, and I'm here to talk to you about Meshtastic. So, the subject of tonight's video is weather telemetry. On a couple of my Heltecs, I've got a BME280 attached to the board over I2C, which is a communication protocol. We'll go into that in a minute. And essentially what that is, it's a little chip that has an onboard barometer, temperature sensor and a pressure sensor. And what this can do is it essentially takes environmental data, and Meshtastic has a way that it can communicate with it and put it out across the mesh. I don't think there's a real need for it, really. It's just a gimmick. It's not particularly expensive to do. I've done it just because it's something to do, and I thought I'd share the process with you this evening. So let's jump straight in. And here it is. This is an example of the BME280 that you want. You can get it off Amazon, like I did, for £8.99 if you want it sort of fairly quick, or if you want to wait a couple of days, you can get it from eBay for probably about half the price of that. But the important thing is that it does need to be the BME280. There is another variant, I think it's BMP, but the pressure sensor is missing from that, so it definitely needs to be the BME280. And this is how it comes in a little anti-static bag. Once you've opened the bag, just have a look the way I've orientated the board there, the top right hand corner of it, there's a little silver chip. Just make sure that's actually on the board, because I've ordered a couple from Amazon where those have been missing, and the board just doesn't even power up, it doesn't work. So that is the actual barometric pressure sensor itself, but just double check that it is there before we install them on the Heltec. Now we need to get 4 pieces of wire. I use a 30 AWG gauge of wire just because it's nice and thin. And obviously we're going to use a red for the power, a black for the ground, and then 2 different colours for the I2C communication wires. I like to use 2 different colours just so I can differentiate them between everything else. A little trick that I like to do is just take these wires and stick them in the end of a drill and just spin the drill up just to twist them. 2 reasons really. It looks neat. It just sort of enables you to route the wires neatly around whatever application you're using. But also, if there is any electromagnetic interference on the cables themselves, because they're twisted, in theory, it should eliminate any of that just by cancelling each other out and just try and reduce your electromagnetic radiation. On this particular board, there's a little 3mm mounting hole, so unless you're going to use that to actually mount it to something, I've just poked my wires through it once I've pulled them through and soldered them onto the board, just to try and sort of keep everything a little bit neat, really. So the 4 pads that you saw on there before, obviously your red's going to go to the supply, the black's going to go to the ground, and then the blue and the green, whichever way around you want to put them, just remember which way you do it, just go to the SCL and the SDA pads. And finally, as far as the actual barometer board itself is concerned, what I've done here is I've wrapped some heat shrink around it. That'll just kind of isolate it electrically, really, so it doesn't cause any shorts, against any other electronic components. But if you look closely, what I have done is I've used a like a scalpel blade and just scored around the barometer itself, because that barometer does actually want to be able to breathe, I guess. It does want to be able to see the atmospheric pressure. If we encapsulate it in a heat shrink, it's going to impede that function. Earlier in the video, I mentioned I2C. So I2C is a communication protocol that these Heltec V3s take advantage of, and that's what we're going to use to wire up our barometer. So on the underside of the board, the side opposite from the screen, in this particular picture you can see pins 41 and 42. Now those are our I2C connections for this particular board. 41 is SDA and 42 is SCL. So you'll notice that those also exist on the barometer board. So SDA would want to go to pin 41, and SCL from the barometer would want to go to pin 42. And that's it. We're all wired up. Just make sure all your wires are all neatly out of the way and they're not going to sort of short out on anything else. And next we'll move on to the configuration on the Meshtastic web configurator. So going over to the web configurator, we're going to hit new connection. I use Bluetooth a lot, so I'm just going to go and try and find my Bluetooth device. Just connect to it. And now I'm going to go across to Configurator or Configuration. Scroll down to Module Configuration. Hit Telemetry off the top ribbon and scroll down to Module Enabled. Just check that. Mine's already checked, so I've got the part fitted. Also displayed on screen if you want to see it on your OLED screen. And then just double check your telemetry broadcast interval times. And that's pretty much it. Good to go. And here's your end result. When you look on your nodes list, you'll see under N1B, the top one on my list here, you can see your temperature, your humidity, and your barometric pressure. This is how I've mounted my barra board in my permanent fixed node outside. I haven't bothered to stick it in a heat shrink on this one, just because the component itself is nowhere near anything it's going to short out in, so it didn't really call for it. And I've also mounted the actual board itself using that little 3mm hole, using a nylon standoff into the back of the box. And I've also soldered servo headers onto the actual board, just so that I can unplug it and plug it back in whenever I need to, in case I need to move it inside the box. And there we go. Something quick and easy and nice and cheap. That's a bit of fun and just adds a bit of something extra to do to the mesh, doesn't it? Brilliant. Thank you very much for watching and see you again soon.